This Cowboys coaching situation was going on like one of those 5-day cricket test matches. Finally, we have a result.
Yeah, it's the Ashes test, I believe, is what was happening. But listen, when it comes to getting rid of a head coach, especially one that was a quarterback for the organization, close relationship with the owners, these things can be a bit of a sticky wicket. We have breaking news in Dallas. The Cowboys moving on without Jason Garrett as head coach. The move widely speculated since the end of the season. 4 days ago, perhaps as far back as midseason, maybe even last February, when Garrett didn't receive a contract extension, comes very much on owner Jerry Jones' timetable. Garrett, 9.5 seasons in charge in Dallas, just 2 playoff wins, 4 8-8 seasons. Ed Werder, first on the story, first now on SportsCenter. And Ed, this sort of the ending, it was expected, I guess, but do we know what tipped things to the point we finally got a decision?
Well, John, I've just been told tonight that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones have moved obviously very slowly and with an abundance of care and respect for Jason Garrett, with whom they have a long history as a backup quarterback, assistant coach, and head coach for nearly a decade. And now I'm told that that phase has been completed and will conclude soon, and that the result is that Garrett's not part of the organization beyond his expiring contract. And so the next phase will involve the candidate interviews, and that should begin quickly hereafter. I know this. Last night, the Jones family had a meeting about Garrett's future that produced absolutely no resolution. But now it does seem that we finally have one that seems sensible, considering that Garrett, as you mentioned, was forced to work the final year of his contract, and he failed to meet the established criteria for his return. And, the Cowboys finished 8-8. They played in an exceptionally weak division. They had an abundance of talent on their football team, and 8-8 was the 4th time that Jason Garrett produced such a record, and only Jeff Fisher has done so more. And I think one thing people should know regarding the Cowboys' deliberate and often confusing process here this week is that Jerry and Stephen Jones would not be operating in this manner if they had any indication that they were risking head coaching candidates that they most desire to other teams.
So really, in this case, it boils down more to relationships than results in the delay. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's totally about that. I think there was some conflict about, what produced the 8-8 result this year that they clearly did not expect for a team that, in training camp, Stephen Jones told us publicly they thought this was the best team and the best roster that they had since they won Super Bowls in the 90s. And they very specifically said that they deliberately did not renew Jason Garrett's contract or extend him, that he was going to have to prove his value to the organization, and that their expectation was to take the next step, which everybody interpreted to mean an NFC championship game at minimum.
All right, next coach, names might be premature, but why will the next head coach be a unique hire for this franchise?
Well, I think one of the unique things, and they haven't, how negotiable is Jerry Jones on his involvement as owner? And I think you could make the argument that this hire needs to be initiated with Executive Vice President Stephen Jones, his son being the lead person, because he's the one who's most likely to run the family franchise and control the daily operation, long term. And he's been, very influential in a lot of big decisions, releasing Terrell Owens, refusing to allow Jerry to draft Johnny Manziel over Zach Martin. And I don't know exactly what their list is, but I know that in the time I've covered the Cowboys, that Jerry has often claimed the Cowboys can have the best there is in coaching, and yet it seems that's only been true twice, Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells. And one of the reasons for that is the role that he's had as the owner and the general manager, and the other is that he has seldom believed that it's necessary to pay big money to head coaches. Again, Johnson and Parcells are the exception. So is Jerry under enough pressure now, John, to make another exception? Because some of the people I believe to be on their list, such as Urban Meyer and Lincoln Riley and Dan Mullen, Josh McDaniels, they are not going to come to Dallas cheaply.
Ed Werder from Dallas, the end of a decade-long run for Jason Garrett as head coach. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, John.
So when it boiled down this season, Garrett and the Cowboys just could not win close games. They went 1-6 in one-score games during the regular season. Only team that had a worse record will also be picking number 1 in the draft. That's the Bengals, who were 0-8. As you see, all the teams on that really poor seasons. Cowboys much more expected. Again, Bengals 0-8. That'll get you the top draft pick.
The Washington pro football team has another new head coach. Happy Easter and 4th of July. Ron Rivera is the guy. He did all sorts of good things in Carolina previously where he was just let go, including that Super Bowl appearance after the 15-1 season in 2015. Under Dan Snyder, Washington has not done many good things. This season, more of the same, 3-13. Nowhere else to go but up unless they go down. John Keim does the inquiry.
Culture really is how people see things. And I think the one thing that we got them to understand is we got to get them to see this organization as a winning organization. One of the things that's going to be real important is these guys understand what my vision is, okay? What the collective vision will be as an organization going forward, what those goals are within that vision, what the plan is going forward, and then the process to execute that plan is going to be. And then everybody has to buy into it. And if they're not going to buy into it, and I do mean this, will be time to replace people. I think he's a young man that has potential in terms of his athletic ability, his smarts, his intelligence as a football player. We saw some quality growth until he was injured in the second to last game of the year. One of the games I like to point to in terms of I saw good growth was the Detroit game in his last 2 drives when he took him down and put him in position to score. I thought that was an excellent job, and it showed that he started to get a grasp in the feel of how to do things.
Well, as mentioned, things have not gone well in the Dan Snyder era. Washington 142, 193-1 since his first season as owner back in 1999. That's .424 winning percentage, 28th in the NFL over that time period. Ron Rivera, though, has built a strong reputation over the course of nearly 9 seasons with the Panthers. Took home AP Coach of the Year honors twice during that time. One of 12 coaches ever with multiple Coach of the Year awards. Rivera, known for being a defensive guy, but he's going to have to ramp up this offense. It was the worst offense. Washington scored just 266 points last season, fewest in the league. Also ranked last in third down conversion.
Hey, tour the world, yours truly. Well, it's my favorite time of the year, playoffs. Not only that, we got the national championship game coming up, and it's win or go home. Even though it's the last year of 2019, we're still talking about the Cowboys. Jerry is meeting with Jason Garrett. Nobody expected him to come back, but this guy's been a loyal Cowboy, a good guy, and Jerry has expressed his fondness for him, so I expect to see him maybe stay in the Cowboy organization. They move him upstairs somewhere, In any event, the problem there, though, now that I think of it, is going to be Jerry. Who will they hire? I think it should be Urban Meyer. He'll have the respect of the players, which is in no small feat, considering these guys are superstar, Pro Bowl, multi-millionaires, but they all would respect Urban. They've been in college when he was dominating college, some of the guys that played for him and against him, and I don't think he would have any problems. The problem is, can Jerry stay in his lane? Jerry, the team he put together, I think is almost Hall of Fame worthy as a GM, but if history means anything, Jimmy Johnson, Parcells, Jerry needs to kind of stay out of the coaching locker room. So I'm interested to see if he's going to hire a real head coach or an assistant head coach. One thing I want to see is New England playing this week. Unusual. If Belichick could take this team through his former coach, Vrabel, down in Tennessee, who beat him soundly last year, through a couple of ex-coaches in Houston, against a team that beat him pretty good this year, Baltimore, get this team to the Super Bowl, I said we should write him in for president next year, because if he can lead this team through this minefield to the Super Bowl, he can lead America. I'm just saying. Take care.
It's day 4 of the Jason Garrett Watch, meetings that make no sense and still no official announcement. But ESPN's Ed Werder says Garrett will be fired. And if he's right about the Cowboys taking their time because of their respect for Garrett, I hope no one ever respects me like that. Former Dallas sports writer Skip Bayless, who works on Fox now, says he's convinced Garrett will be the Cowboys coach next year. Now, Bayless is the guy who always says what nobody else does, but it almost made sense. Because why else would you drag this out? This is the kind of mess you have when the owner is the general manager and the owner gets too close to his players and coaches. Supporting Garrett now is what we've seen from Jones before. In the late 90s, he was trading away draft picks and spending the Cowboys into salary cap hell, trying to help Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith win another Super Bowl, and it didn't work. Jones's loyalty is probably seen as a virtue to some, but it is a character trait that doesn't work in the NFL. When Jones fired the great Cowboys coach Tom Landry in '89, it was surprising to me how many players weren't that upset, saying Landry had fired a lot of players and now it was his turn. But Landry said it best. By releasing a player whose time was up, he was being loyal to the 53 who could still play, and loyal to the fans who expected their team to win. There is no virtue in being loyal to a coach who's had 9 years to win and can't. It's unfair to the millions who blindly support this team. A football general manager would know that, but the Cowboys don't have one. If Jones doesn't fire Garrett, as ESPN is reporting he will, I would think the radio talk shows and the internet would explode. But then opening day, the stadium would be full and millions would be watching on TV because they will believe this could be the year. But until we see the white smoke from the building, we wait.